Hello friends, I'm Abby and today I will be starting my reading vlog for the $1,000 Readathon, the weekend edition. So in case you don't know, this readathon, I participated in it last year and I had a whole reading vlog for that week-long readathon, and this edition is just a weekend long. So it started today, Friday at midnight, and it ends on Sunday. I just got home from work, so I'm just now starting this readathon. But the way it works is it's kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure readathon where you open a door and then based on the prompt you get, you pick a book. Once you finish that book, based on how you felt about it, you pick a new door. And then you get a new prompt, you pick another book. So the goal for this weekend edition is to read 3 books. There will be 3 prompts. And they said that they have over, I think they said 40 pathways that you could go down. So it sounds like all of us are going to have a very unique experience. And I can't wait. So there are 3 videos to start this off that we are going to watch, or I'm going to watch, and I'll include them on here to decide which prompt I'm going to go with. I'm only going to include the clip for the prompt that I actually end up going with, because if not, it'll be like 10 minutes of you sitting here watching me watch a video, and that's not exciting vlog content. And I'm going to watch this video and see which prompt I want to go with. Okay, next is Emma from Drinking by My Shelf, and I'm going to watch her video, so let's see how it goes.
Okay, should we get going with what the first prompt of the $1,000
Yes, we should get going with the
could
first
be
prompt
for you, should you choose to select it? So all of my prompts will be themed around games. As you know, I just love playing board games. So for this first prompt, we're going to play a little mini game of Articulate. We're not actually going to play, but we are going to roll the dice and move around the board and figure out what our first prompt is going to be that way. Okay, I landed on nature, so the first prompt is going to be owl. The word owl.
So I do think I'm going to go with Emma from Drinking by My Shelf, and her prompt was the word owl. And all of these prompts are very open to interpretation. So I'm going to go look on my little TBR shelf and see if I can find a book that I want to read that has something to do with owl, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I had a couple options, but I decided to go with one that is maybe a little bit open to interpretation. I definitely stretched the idea of owl out a little bit, but I'm going to go with Once There Were Wolves by Charlotte McConaughey, and part of it is because this whole cover is just woods and woodland areas, and that is where owls live, is in the woods, but also because this book sounds like it's going to be all about protecting the earth and protecting creatures in the world and creatures that live in these forests and that reside in these habitats that humans are essentially destroying. So I think it's going to be a very wise book and have a lot of wisdom that I can take away from it. It is considered more of a drama than a fun, lighthearted read, and I think that is what I think of kind of fall, wise, serious vibes for owls, not to mention they live in the woods. So I'm going to start with Once There Were Wolves, and I will update you when I'm 100 pages in. I'm very excited. Let's start the $1,000 readathon. It is Saturday. I am up later than I wanted to be. I had the longest week at work, and it has just been a really tiring week. I've had rehearsals every night, and I just needed to sleep. I just needed to sleep. I needed a break, and I took it. So it's about 10 a.m. right now. I do think that I will easily be able to finish
Once There Were Wolves sometime this morning, and once I'm a little farther in, I'll update you on my thoughts about the book. I really only just got it started last night, so I will update you how I feel about it once I have a little more understanding of the book and once I'm a little further into it. So right now, I'm making coffee. My plans today are to do this readathon. Like, this is all I'm doing today. I am planning on taking my coffee and my breakfast, going back up to bed. I'm going to sit in bed and read for quite a while. I might go on a walk later, but for the most part, today is all about reading and finishing books. So I will update you once I've read a little bit more of Once There Were Wolves, but for the time being, I'm going to go make this coffee, I'm going to eat my breakfast, and start this readathon right, because I haven't been giving it the attention it deserves.
I was wrong. I think the one I'm thinking of is just called Cows.
Okay, I have my coffee, and my bookmarks are for Quitters mug from my friend Ben for Christmas last year. I love it so much. And I have you guys at this weird angle because I am in bed, all cozied up, and I don't really have anywhere to put the phone to film. So this is the angle you're getting. But I am 100 pages into Once There Were Wolves. I'm participating in Tasman's 1,000 Doors Readathon reading sprints until lunch. And I managed to get to 100 pages into Once There Were Wolves. So I think it's time that I update you on what it's about. So this book is all about Inti, who's our main character. And she is from Australia. Her and her twin sister grew up in Australia, and her dad is like very climate conscious. He is very aware of the world and has raised them with these ideas of, preserving the earth, and if everyone is not going to make choices that are beneficial for the planet, then we have to do even more than our part so that we can protect the planet we live on. Basically, the idea that we are custodians of the planet, not owners of the planet. And their mom is a gritty, dark, crime-solving detective who specializes in domestic violence cases against women. So two very different vibes. Their mom lives in the city, their dad lives out in the woods. It's very isolated, and it creates in them kind of this duality as they're growing up. They are connected to nature, but also constantly aware of the dangers of the outside world, of human beings. Very interesting. And like I said, they're twin sisters, but Inti, our main character, has, I don't remember what it's called, but it's basically mirror feelings, which means that she is able to feel, if she sees something happen to someone else, she's able to feel that happening to her. So I want to say it's synesthesia. But anyway, if someone gets hit in the face over across the room and she sees it, she will feel like she got hit in the face. And it is a real thing that people experience. So that is very interesting to see that representation in here. I've never read a book where that was represented, so I'm very interested in that concept. And this book is essentially doing three things, really. It's telling the backstory of these girls. It is very beautifully incorporated into the story. So we are getting bits and pieces as you go through of their history, their life growing up, their experiences with their dad and with their mom, and how they felt about what they were doing growing up, their bond as sisters. This twin bond is really coming through in the story. And then it is also telling the story of Inti and her wolves. So Inti is part of this program. She was part of it in Alaska, where her and Aggie, her twin sister, were living before the start of this book. Inti was part of this wolf program, and basically she steals these wolves. I believe she steals 14 of them with this team, and they bring the wolves to Scotland to basically rehabilitate them into the wild and rewild Scotland. So there are lots of interesting parts in this book where we talk about nature and the food chain, kind of how every little thing affects everything. So they're bringing these wolves into Scotland to basically bring the forests back. And they're having lots of conversations how would bringing wolves into our land
bring back the forest. Like, that's insane. And so they're talking a lot about how, the wolves will take the deer population down because deer in Scotland are overpopulated. It'll take the population down, which will then allow the plants to grow more. It will create more like trickle down effect. It will have more insects that are around that will be able to pollinate the grass and the trees, and the greenery of Scotland will come back. But there are a lot of people in this town, pretty much everyone in this town that they take the wolves to, who are very against having the wolves in their society because they are a farming town, and they're basically convinced that the wolves in Scotland are going to destroy their livelihoods and take away their livestock and basically make it so that the wolves are in control. They don't like it and are very threatening to Inti about it, and she's just like not having it. I love her as a character. And then the third thing that the story is doing, kind of like the third part, is that it kind of goes in tandem with that, but basically something happened to Aggie in Alaska. She no longer speaks and now lives with Inti, and Inti is kind of her caretaker. She like washes her, but we haven't figured out what happened. So I think that there's definitely a lot of conversations in this book about domestic violence against women. Tensions are high. And while we're waiting to find out what happened to Aggie, we're also dealing with some domestic violence stuff happening in the town. So I definitely think that that will come into play in the book as well. But this book, ultimately, the writing is fantastic. I love Inti as a character so far. The writing is very quick. Like, I'm flying through this book. The chapters are fairly short, but also it has, like, I'll show you right here, like, this is a paragraph, and then there's a break. And it's like that basically the whole way through. So you just never want to stop reading. And at 100 pages in, we've gotten into kind of a murder mystery that I didn't really expect. So there's, like, a murder mystery going on where somebody has been found dead, and Inti is worried that people are going to think it was the wolves and are going to demand that the wolves be taken away because she's just very passionate about saving the wolves and saving the natural world, basically because of the way she was raised by her dad. So I'm going to keep reading this book. I'm loving it, and I'm flying through it. So I'm just going to keep reading on the sprint for about another hour, and then I will stop for lunch.
I just got to the 200-page mark of Once There Were Wolves, and I'm absolutely loving this book. It is so immersive, and I really feel connected to Inti as a character and to her story and to her goals. I just really feel like a deep connection to her, and she just carries so much like self-loathing, and she's questioning so much about herself. And I think that this book does a really good job of portraying people as human beings and not as good or bad, or, sometimes people will call other people monsters in this book, and the author does a really good point of saying, calling someone or something a monster turns it into this mythical thing, and it's not mythical. It is life. It is real, and the choices these people are making are choices that affect them as well as other people. Like, they are not making these choices in a vacuum. They're making the choices, and those people who make these choices have to deal with the consequences of their actions. And it's just a very introspective, and I don't want to say slow-paced novel. Like, the pacing is actually very, very quick, but it's a book where not a whole lot happens, and I think that it functions so well that way because it just makes you think. Like, I just am so into the story and into these characters and their lives that I don't even really notice the pages passing, and that is amazing. It is so, so good. And I love the little small town vibe that is being brought into the story. It just is really, really refreshing to read and really excellent considering how dark the material of the book is. It is doing such a good job of
blending all of these ideas together. So I'm really, really enjoying it. I love reading about wolves, which I didn't expect, but I also read another book, I think it was Beasts of Extraordinary Circumstance, it also focused on someone who worked with wolves, and I really, really loved it. So now I'm starting to think that I like stories about wolves. What a weird revelation to have in this readathon. But anyway, I am going to finish this. I have 50 pages left of the book. I don't want to put it down, but it is giving me that constant feeling of, am I going to burst into tears at any moment? There is definitely like a turn that this book took, and we haven't really like dived into that yet. But I'm loving it. The idea of right and wrong and like what we owe to the environment and to the world and what we owe to each other. Just really interesting thoughts that this book is bringing to mind. I'm going to go finish it. I have finished Once There Were Wolves by Charlotte McConaughey, and I absolutely loved this book. I think it might be a 5-star read for me. It just feels very moving and impactful. The murder mystery element of this really took a couple interesting twists. There were moments where I saw it coming, but then I was kind of tricked into thinking that it wasn't right, and then it twisted again, and it just was a very stunning example of, even if it's predictable, letting the murder mystery just kind of take you wherever it's gonna go. Like, I was on board for whatever direction this book took. It was just stunning. The writing was amazing. The concept of the story and the messages in this book were really great. I love books that have a plot, and in that plot, it's paralleling something that is going on in our world. So obviously, climate change is an important part of this, but in this book, their goal is to rewild Scotland, which basically, as I mentioned before, means introducing something scary and something that feels vicious in order to allow for the good, the greenery, the flowers to come forth from the ground. And this book is just a stellar example of taking that and applying it to the human condition. Like, the goal of these characters is not just to rewild Scotland, but to rewild themselves. Like, they are doing this thing in life, but then the goal is to face some of their scary and awful and predatory demons inside of them and outside in order to allow for that new regrowth to happen. And it was just so satisfying. It was so satisfying. I love these characters. I love the way the story ends. It was short. It's only 250 pages, and it really packed a punch. Like I said, I absolutely loved this, and I'm so happy that I got to read it for this readathon and tell you all my thoughts about it. Now, I have the video from Emma, Drinking by My Shelf, pulled up. I have my coffee ready, and I'm ready now to find what my next prompt is going to be and to pick my second book.
Waiting for you to go, waiting for you to read, waiting for you to come back. Okay, my first question is, how did you enjoy this book?
I loved it.
I'm going to give you 3 options to click. Either you gave the book a 4 or a 5 stars, it was really successful. Second option, you gave the book 1 to 3 stars, it was okay, or maybe outright terrible. And the third option is that you decided to DNF the book. You can now click on your answer to go through the next door and receive your next prompt.
Clearly, I'm choosing 4 to 5 stars. Here we go. Let's see what happens.
Well, welcome back. You got
Emma
me again, and I am so glad that you so enjoyed your last book. That is great news. So let's see if I can do just as well and give you a prompt for a second book that you're also going to enjoy. So the next game we're going to play, this is Dixit. You might not have heard of this one. It's not as popular a game as Articulate, but it's very sweet and very wholesome. It all revolves around telling stories around pictures. So I'm going to randomly select one of these cards, and that is going to make up our next prompt. This is the one. Here you go.
I am going to stop it there, and I'm going to tell you what I imagine this picture. So this picture, to me, clearly it's like a cozy tree, but the tree has no
leaves on it, but it's holding flowers. This is just screaming like fairy tale to me. Some kind of like fantasy. I mean, the tree has a face. Some kind of fantasy, but maybe like a little hint of darkness, maybe a little hint of lightness. I don't know. It has flowers and it's smiling, but it has no leaves. Interesting. You can see, this is my TBR shelf right here. I think I'm going to go look up there and pull books that I think fit this image. And I'll come right back and show you. Okay, so I found two that I think I'm trying to decide between. So the first one is All the Wind in the World by Samantha Mabry. And this I picked because it's kind of a forbidden romance, and the flowers kind of give me like a little bit of romance vibe. And it's supposedly magical realism, so I feel like that fits a little well. And then Every Heart a Doorway by Shauna McGuire, because I feel like this kind of has the like cozy foresty vibe, but it's a little bit dark, and like the fallen leaves off of the tree make me think a little bit of darkness, and clearly the tree is along a path, so it's kind of like a pathway, but it's also holding flowers and smiling, so it seems a little light. And I feel like this is a book that will really fit kind of that light and dark theme, and this book is specifically related to fairy tales. I think I'm gonna go with this one. I think Every Heart a Doorway might be my choice. Okay, so I'm gonna pick this one. Every Heart a Doorway by Shauna McGuire is going to be my second choice. It's very short, which is perfect for a readathon. And it says, what happens after ever after? And it is about, I think, these people who are part of this like fantasy world and then come back to the real world, and there's a home called Eleanor West's Home for Wayward Children, and Eleanor West kind of helps them rehabilitate into normal society. So I think this is gonna be a great choice. I'm excited. Okay, this is gonna be my second choice. Let's see how long it is, because I believe it's fairly short. Yeah, it's only 170, so I'll update you once I'm halfway through this, because I definitely think this will be a quick read. Hi, I took a shower, which is why I'm in completely different clothes, my hair is completely different, and I no longer have any makeup on. It's that kind of Saturday. We're just hanging out, and I am halfway through Every Heart a Doorway. And just another reason, I didn't know this when I picked it up, but another reason that really validates my choice for this book, for this prompt, this book comes with illustrations, just really solidifying my choice-making skills for this readathon. So this book, I'm loving it. I'm not going to hold it up because I don't have the cover on it, but Every Heart a Doorway by Shauna McGuire is lovely so far. I'm truly enjoying it. The world building is wonderful. We are getting little bits and pieces of these worlds as we go, and I do know that the rest of the series follows some of these different worlds, so it's very interesting to see them popping up now and not getting a whole lot of information, because I know we get more information about those worlds throughout the series. But in this book, so far, we have met Nancy, who is our main character, and Nancy was sent to or went to this underworld, this land of the dead, and she was there for years, and she says it's what felt like forever, but it ended up only being about 6 months in the real world. And so her family is now wanting her to return to this girl that she used to be, and she has basically lived an entire life in this underworld and doesn't really want to go back to the way she was. In fact, she wants to go back to the underworld. And Eleanor's Home for Wayward Children is one of many boarding schools in the world for kids who have come back from these magical lands. And Eleanor West's home is specifically for kids who want to return and who don't want to forget their experiences. There are other boarding schools where the goal is for these kids to forget what happened to them. This one is for kids specifically who have fond memories or want to remember their experiences there. So we're meeting Nancy, we're getting to see her adapt to the real world and see kind of how these kids at this boarding school are all different and affected by the trips they took and the doors they went through. We have met Sumi and Cade, we've met Jack and Jill, all characters that are absolutely wonderful. We've met Lundy, who is this woman. She runs this like therapy group, but she's aging backwards, so she presents as an 8-year-old girl, even though she is an older woman. And we've met Eleanor, who we find out in the very beginning, in the first little prologue, that she has been through doors and is struggling herself, and it really shows that like the struggle is constantly there. And the ties that this book has to childhood trauma and the way trauma affects you long term is just so profound. This book is written for young adults, like it's a young adult story, but I would believe you if you said this was an adult book. Just the way that these themes are so brilliantly like woven through the story. So good. Not to mention the representation, the discussions about gender identity, about sexuality. We have so far openly stated asexual and transgender characters. So beautiful to see in a young adult book, especially one that is all about like magic and going to different worlds and coping with real life. Those themes are just so well discussed when we can tie them to things that happen in our society. So very, very beautiful. The writing is stunning. Again, I would believe that this was written for adults and not young adults. It gives me really strong The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet vibes by Becky Chambers, because this book takes a genre and kind of makes it cozy. It's taking this fantasy world and these fantastical elements and making them cozy and heartfelt and all about the characters and not so much about the fantasy worlds. And it's wonderful. There are therapy groups in this for these kids who are coping. They're going through coping skills. Like, it's just so stunning so far. I'm loving it. I love watching Nancy kind of deal with these like big changes and figuring out what the heck is going on and like trying to understand everything. And halfway through this book, there's now suddenly a murder mystery. What is with these books I'm picking up and just like having murder mysteries out of nowhere? And I am very interested to see what happens and where this goes, because right now I have no clue. But I'm loving the book. Loving it so far. I will definitely finish this today, but I'm getting really, really tired and hungry, so I think it's almost time for dinner, and after dinner we might go on a walk just to kind of like wake up a little bit, and I will update you once I've read a little bit more of this book. Here we are once more with worse lighting because it is now nighttime, but I finished another book and wow, I loved this book. This is definitely like a very hyped book. It is super well known and well loved, and I definitely think that it deserves that. It is short. It's like a novella feel, but it still had, I thought, fully completed characters, a complete story. The world building was great. And like I said, I know this is the start of a series and that it couldn't possibly encapsulate all of the worlds that these kids have experienced, but it does give us a wonderful starting point. So now the future books can kind of dive deeper into those worlds. And in the second half of the book, it definitely took a turn into the more fantastical element. And we got to really see like what makes all of these kids special and why they went through doors in the first place. We get more explanation as to when these doors appear, and I don't know, there's no right or wrong answer to whether going through these doors is a good thing. It's like these kids, some of them went through the doors and had really great experiences, some didn't, some are going to get to go back, some are never going to get to go back. So it is super interesting, and it felt very magical, while still being in the real world. We get to see kind of these kids who are dying to go back. All of them would love to go back to these worlds that they visited through these doorways, and we get to see them kind of grapple with whether hope is necessary or good for them, because it's possible that they would never get to go back. It was so good. The characters were great. It's definitely one that I will be thinking of for a long time, because it is just such a fantastic, magical beginning to a new world. And I loved these characters. I truly loved all of them. They were weird and quirky. All of them had like their own thing going on. And I think their doors and their worlds are going to reflect that. So, that being said, I finished this. It's time to find out what my next prompt is going to be, and my final prompt. Okay, I couldn't do it anymore. I had to plug in my ring light. The dark lighting in this room was not the move. So let's go back to Emma's video, her for prompt 2, and I'm going to scoot you over so I can see it, and we are going to find out what the final prompt is.
And you're back. I'm assuming you're here because you have finished the book. So I have one more question to ask you. That last book that you just read, was the ending satisfying? I'm going to give you the option to click yes it was, no it wasn't, or to say that you DNF'd the book and so you didn't get that far, which is always good with me. I'm very pro DNFing. So the doors are now available for you to go through depending on your answer. Click on the right door and go through to get your final prompt.
I'm going to say yes. The ending was satisfying. It wasn't what I wanted or expected. But you know what? We're going to go, yeah. I loved the book. I was satisfied. If I had wanted that ending, it really could have gone either way. And if I had wanted that ending, I think it would have been super satisfying. So we're going to click yes.
Welcome to your third door, your prompt for book 3. Not only was the ending to your last book satisfying, but you seem to pretty much have enjoyed every book you've read so far, which we love to see. I'm so happy for you. I hope that I am the same way. You haven't had me yet, so all of my prompts are in the form of reaction videos or memes, the kind of clips I put in my videos. So your prompt is...
I've connected the 2 dots.
You didn't connect shit, but
I've connected them.
So, from this, the first thing that comes to mind for me is a mystery or a thriller book, something where you're trying to figure out something and connect the dots. Now, bookmark this video, go ahead and pick a book based on this prompt, and then come back here to click on this video once you've finished the book.
Okay, we're connecting the dots. We're connecting the dots. That is our meme. I think I know what I'm going to pick, but I'm going to go see what mysteries and thrillers I have. I definitely have a couple, so I think I'm going to pick those, and they tend to be fast-paced anyway, since I have one day left to finish a whole book. I'm going to need that support, so let's go see what I have.
I have decided, this was especially motivated by this being Meg's prompt, because this is a book that I bought from Meg's suggestion, so I feel like this is kind of the perfect moment to read it, and that is Truly Devious by Maureen. The book said... absolutely not. Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. This seems to be kind of like a dark academia vibe, but it is a murder mystery, a young adult murder mystery that takes place, I believe, at a boarding school. So it's definitely following similar vibes to what I've been reading. Excuse me? Look at this Ellingham Academy map. Okay, yeah, I'm so excited to read this. I'm so excited. I've heard this book has some riddles in it. It is a murder mystery. It's dedicated for anyone who has ever dreamed of finding a body in the library. Honestly, it sounds like it's going to be perfect for me. But it's basically a private school, and I believe it's like there was a murder that happened many years ago, and the main character comes to the school intent on solving that past murder, and then a new murder happens, and they are hoping to solve that as well. Now, this does have a lot of pages, 420 pages. So it's going to be an effort to read it in one day. But we're going to do it. I don't have anything until 6 p.m. tomorrow. 5:30 p.m. tomorrow. So we're gonna do our best to read this book. I think the audiobook is available from my library. I believe that I can get it from the Libby app, so I'm gonna just check and see if my library has it. And if so, I'm gonna listen to the audiobook to get this started while I finish up doing laundry and doing some things around the house this evening. And then I will probably check in again tomorrow and let you know where I'm at in the morning, and we'll go from there.
36, 6 p.m. You know I can't let you leave. Fate came for Darby Epstein a year earlier, in the form of a call to the principal's office.
Good morning. I have coffee and a bowl of Fruity Pebbles because I'm clearly undecided whether I'm a small child or an old grandmother. I love these like beams of light coming through. I'm not even gonna move because I feel radiant with these lights. Anyway, I am 100 pages in to Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. It is Sunday morning. I'm exhausted. It has been a long week. We're up, we're moving, and we are gonna listen and read along to some Truly Devious today. That's my goal, is to do that before I have to go to this musical reading at 5:30. So, I'm 100 pages in. Let's talk about what it's about. So this book follows Ellingham Academy. This is kind of like a private boarding school for kids who are elite. Like, they are chosen because they are like super academic, they're super artistic, like they have something that sets them apart from like the general society of kids. The way to apply is literally just to reach out and they will decide whether you are accepted or not. So the main character of this is Stevie, and Stevie applies out of nowhere and gets accepted. And so her parents and her are kind of like, what? I do not belong here, because she's not super academic. She's smart, but she doesn't have anything she thinks that like really sets her apart. But the reason she applies is that she wants to be an FBI agent in the future. She wants to solve crimes, and so she goes to Ellingham Academy. Her entrance essay that she sends in is basically like, hey, I want to solve this unsolved Ellingham murder that happened in the 30s, and they accept her. So she's basically here as a high school student at this private academy to solve murders. We also have a dual timeline with the 1930s where we are seeing these murders or this murder happen. And the Ellingham Academy already is very like sneaky. There's lots of hidden pathways. There are lots of tunnels and different exits out of buildings that the students are kind of told not to go into because it could be dangerous, but we're seeing in the 1930s how people are using those tunnels. And then we have like Stevie's group of people she meets. I wouldn't call them friends yet, but they're all super like eclectic and weird, a little quirky. We have like someone who plays the saxophone really, really badly, and we have someone who has like little baby socks tied into her hair. Someone who like spray paints "This is art" all over everything they find, like she's an artist. And it's just really interesting. I think it's gonna be kind of a dark academia, light academia, more of like a friendship story where this girl is trying to solve a murder. And listen, I love Stevie. I relate to her strongly because she loves true crime. She dreams, it literally starts with like, she dreams of finding a dead body. Like standing over a dead body. Not in a creepy way, but like because she wants to be an FBI agent. And like, I love her. I feel like I am her. I feel like a lot of us are her, but in secret. But she is a 17-year-old who loves listening to stories that are super gruesome and dark. And people at her old school really like made fun of her for it. And we're like, that's weird. And at this new school, people are super into it. And they're like, oh, you're here to solve the murders? Yes, tell us the details. We want to know all the like dark, gritty things from the school. And she's already feeling like she fits in. I have a hard time with young adult dark academia sometimes because it tends to, I don't connect super well to young adult contemporaries because I'm not in high school anymore. So stories that take place at a high school aren't always things that super connect to me. So like, for example, in this, they're like getting ready to go to a party and like as an adult, I go to parties, but it's not the same level as like high school or college parties. And so I have a hard time connecting to those stories. But I'm hoping because these kiddos are kind of quirky and weird that it won't be like a typical high school party. So we'll see. Like I said, I'm going to literally go listen to this audiobook while I eat my breakfast and drink my coffee. And I will check in once I've read a little bit more, because this is my plan for today, is to finish this book and finish this readathon. And in 20 minutes, it will be the last live show of the $1,000 readathon, and I'm going to go watch it. So I will check in once I have something else to update you about. Hi, I just finished lunch. I finished the live stream, and I have really just been like reading and eating for the past 30 minutes, and I'm now halfway through Truly Devious. Fun fact, I just found out that Maureen Johnson wrote 13 Little Blue Envelopes, which I definitely read when I was younger, and I had no idea this was the same author. So weird. I was like, oh, a new to me author. I've never read anything by her before. I definitely have. This book, it's interesting. There's nothing like remarkable about it necessarily so far. It feels very YA. The writing isn't like out of this world. It's not giving me like strong dark academia vibes. It's really just setting up an interesting mystery. I think the past sections are probably my favorite as of right now, and Stevie I think is really funny. Like, she makes comments sometimes, and I just think that her as a narrator is like a funny character to read from. She's very relatable, and this book has wonderful anxiety rep and panic attack rep. As someone who has anxiety and has had panic attacks, this really does a good job of describing what it's like to live with those feelings and to not necessarily trust how you're interpreting things, because you don't really know if somebody said something shady or if you're interpreting it as something shady because of your own anxiety. Just a really great demonstration of that, and of how hard it is to ask for help when you're struggling with panic attacks or anxiety in general. Like, how it can be kind of hard to tell people, hey, I have anxiety and this is why I'm acting this way. Stevie is the best part about this book. The mystery hasn't really kicked off yet. Obviously, we have the past mystery, which I think is why that is like most interesting to me, is because it's like in the thick of it. And in this, in the present day, Stevie is still like getting to know people and just kind of like settling into college, even halfway, or to high school, halfway through the book. And I do know that this is just the start of the series, and that by the end of this book we aren't going to get answers, and so maybe that's why it feels more slow paced. But it's just not a whole lot has happened yet. They're exploring this campus and just kind of being kids. I think there's a romance that's kind of blooming a little bit. I don't know. I am not liking it. I am kind of enjoying the time I'm spending reading it. It's just that not a whole lot of has happened, and it's nothing like out of this world remarkable so far, in my opinion. And I think we're about to get into the part where the truly devious character comes back and starts kind of like tormenting present day people, and I'm looking forward to that. I think that will add a really great element to the book, and it just hasn't happened yet, so I'm waiting to see if that happens. I'm gonna go get some groceries, I'm gonna listen to this audiobook while I shop, and I will check back in a little bit when I'm back from the grocery store, and hopefully I'll be able to read 100 more pages, and that'll get me 3/4 of the way through this book. Let's do it. So I'm back from getting groceries. I treated myself to some Starbucks for this last day of the readathon, and to kind of prepare myself for this long evening. Anyway, I got 100 pages further into Truly Devious while I was grocery shopping. I'm at page 303, so I'm flying through it. I'm about 3/4 of the way through. And again, my feelings are still the same. I don't have strong feelings about this book. Like, it's a good book, but it's nothing great so far. I was right. We're getting more of the modern day mystery and some like crime solving things, and that is very interesting and definitely like improving my reading experience.
of the book, and we're starting to get some like interviews from the past, and one of the characters that was kidnapped in this like previous timeline in the 1930s was never found, and so I think that might come into play at some point. Basically, I have no theories. There's only 100 pages left, and I have no theories because this book hasn't really given me anything that I can work with in terms of a theory. The romance, I was right about that. It did kick in a little bit, so we are getting a little bit of romance. I'm hopefully going to finish it in the next like hour and a half, and I'm going to put the headphones in, do some laundry, fold it. I did it yesterday. I'm folding it today. And just kind of finish this book up. And then it'll finish this readathon. So let's do this. The last reading sprint. Let's go. Okay, I've officially finished Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. And sadly, I'm not obsessed with this. However, I am interested enough that I did just request the second book from the library because this book leaves you on a massive cliffhanger and doesn't actually give you any answers. Like, it ends with pretty much everything still up in the air, and so I got the second book from the library because I'm hoping to just keep on going and figure out how this mystery ends up. But I do love Stevie as a character. She's the reason I'm still going. She's not afraid to admit when she's made mistakes. She is kind of a well-rounded, like, my parents don't get me kind of teenager. I actually kind of like the love interest, and I'm interested to see where it goes, although I have mad beef with him at the end of this book that I'm hoping gets resolved at some point. I feel like I remember reading there's a love triangle in this series at some point, so maybe that'll be the next book. I could definitely see that happening. But I think for this book, I'm going to give it a 3.5 stars. It was pretty good. It was enjoyable and quick to get through, but it didn't blow my mind or really do anything like crazy good for me. So 3.5 I think is fair for this. So just to recap, I finished 3 books in 3 days for this readathon. The first one was Once There Were Wolves by Charlotte McConaughey, and I gave it 5 stars. Every Heart a Doorway by Shonda Maguire was my second book, and I gave it 4.5. And then Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson, which I'm giving 3.5. So overall, it's been a pretty good readathon. So I'm finished with the weekend edition of the Thousand Doors Readathon. I feel very successful. I focused on books that I own rather than my library books, and it feels very satisfying to cross 3 of my physical TBR books off of the list and just to kind of spend the weekend relaxing and reading. It was much needed, and I definitely found some new all-time favorites. I'm going to continue both of the series I started in this video, and Once There Were Wolves is definitely a new all-time favorite for me. So, thank you all so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, share this video with anyone who you think would enjoy it, and I will see you next time. Bye, friends!